Friends, good evening. Our topic for tonight is about blame culture. Take note that a blame culture cannot coexist with a good safety culture. A good safety culture cannot exist within an organization if there is a blame culture. And a blame culture cannot live along in an organization where there is a good safety culture. So, both are not compatible. However, we need to discuss what are the factors that will affect the organization, that an organization may adapt, may be contaminated, may embrace or having a character of blaming. Why? All right. My topic today is not about electricians, installer, technician, mason, carpenter, and among themselves there is a blame culture. It is not my topic. My topic today is about a safety practitioner, a safety professional. Either he is safety manager, safety engineer, that he is working in an organization that whenever there are or there is an occurrence of an incident, he will be too defensive not to open the real root cause of the incident. It is because he is afraid of being blamed for the failure. That's one thing. So my discussion today is actually centered on safety practitioner. How to avoid and perhaps understand that in an organization, the moment there are two things, I will be talking to you of two things tonight. That whenever you have these two things in the organization, do not keep on preaching no blame culture, no blame culture, no blame culture. Because when these two things are present in an organization, even if how many preacher will preach of avoid blame culture will surely exist. I remember the definition of human behavior. Human behavior, according to that definition, is his reaction towards his environment. If an organization is working in an area wherein his organization is having a blame culture, working in a development, working in an area as subcontractor or as a main contractor, working in a development, a complex project, for example. Once these two things exist in that organization, in his environment, do not expect that blame will never exist. Because people will tend to blame someone to avoid liability. So now, let's look at the item number 1. That when you have this, you cannot avoid that the safety manager, the safety engineer, the site engineer, I'm talking of the staff in an organization, there will always be a blame whenever there will be incident. If it is the habit of his environment, wherein his company is working, that the blame will always exist because of number one, retribution. Retributive. What do you mean by retribution? When a consultant, PMC, or any of the authority having jurisdiction of that development will stretch its muscle to punish someone because of something. Punish someone because during the audit, his attitude is not good towards me. His attitude against me is not what I expect. This auditee did not welcome me, did not offer me something while in the course of audit, then I have to kill him. I have to add more serious violation into the clauses. Because of that behavior which you think, which you as an auditor feel that it is not the right attitude towards you by an auditee, towards the auditor, then you will take advantage of your being an auditor and punish the contractor. So there must be some reason for the auditor or for the PMC or for the consultant to serve as a reason for him to apply more violation and harsh observation against the auditee. Even in walkthrough, there will be a tendency for a consultant or the PMC to point fingers. Even if it is not a serious violation, but he would like to write more violations to put him into shame, the main contractor safety manager, the safety engineer of the main contractor, so that he can stretch his muscle that I am more better than you and I deserve respect. So in that case, you cannot expect that in the next time around, during your next visit, even when you come back for a benchmarking, even if you as member of as a representative of the project management and or supervision, the safety manager of the main contractor will tend to blame someone if there are any unwanted condition, an undesirable condition, something that may be non-conformity. He will not reveal the truth, what are the underlying conditions. Instead, he will point his finger against the site engineer, against that foreman, against that subcontractor. Why? Because he is afraid of that retribution. That attitude from the higher entity is what we call retributive. If an organization is not retributive, then the blame culture will not exist. Because the contractor, the auditee, the owner of the premises that is being inspected, he is comfortable that this guy will not take those items against me. So there is no retribution of whatever error, relations prior to engagement in the project. Some engagement, some business, some political reason. For that, such influence, if retribution will exist in an organization, you cannot avoid that the safety manager of the main contractor will be too defensive, and whenever there are error, whenever there are lapses, whenever there is something failure in the process, he will usually avoid, and instead you will know the real reason of the incident. He will be too defensive because he is afraid of retribution. So number one is retribution. We will go to the second now. Second, punitive. What do you mean by punitive? This is coming from the word punishment. Retribution, there is also punishment, but there is reason. prior to the engagement in the project, maybe you have some conflict in a professional organization. Maybe you get insulted prior to engagement into this project. Now that he becomes PMC, he will stretch his muscle and castigate you somehow. So, when you say retribution, there is some reason or prior engagement that the auditor or the inspector, the client, the PMC or the supervision consultant, he don't like the way you deal with him. So, in that, he would like to use that as a capital for him to hate you, load you with non-conformity. That is what we call retribution. When an organization, when the higher entity is more of retributive in nature, you cannot avoid blame culture in the organization. Alright. When the PMC, when the supervision or higher entity, when the auditor, when the third party coming to your site and conduct an investigation, alright, or benchmarking, or safety audit, and he took that prior engagement against you, then that is what we call retribution. Sorry. Alright, what about punitive? This one is without previous engagement. But because of that incident, he wants to punish you. Because this mentality is thinking that when the cladding subcontractor or when the electrician or when the excavator committed mistake, it is your mistake, safety manager. Safety engineer. There are projects, by the way, that the higher person in the health and safety department is not necessarily safety manager. There are contracts that the safety department in the project is headed by safety engineer or some with senior safety officer. Depending on the nature of the project and the budget as well. Because when the client says, all right, senior safety officer shall be the lead, there will be no safety manager because the safety manager has a higher budget. Now we have less budget, so hire a senior safety and he will be the focal person in the project. So the organogram of the organization will be changed. Instead of safety manager, it will be senior safety officer. Alright. Now, the focal person in safety department of that particular project, the moment he feel that he is punished whenever there is mistake, because the supervision, the auditor, the inspector is thinking that this incident, this non-conformity, this failure in your organization, it is because you are not moving around. It is because you are not checking the organization. You are not moving in your project every morning and every afternoon. Because the mentality of the consultant or the auditor is that safety should be visible. Regardless of whatever the condition, he is viewing the safety focal person to be visible at all times. On site, because he is thinking in his mentality that the visibility of safety, engineer, safety officer, senior safety officer will somehow prevent unwanted event. So, when this auditor will visit the project or find some lapses, find some non-conformity, he will punish you because he regarded your failure as your own initiation. Even if the electrician committed mistake, he got electrocuted, he will blame the focal in safety. Punitive. Whenever there is incident on site, whenever there are non-conformity, whenever there are lapses on site, he wants to punish the health and safety focal person. If that mentality will be there, that mentality, the moment there is an overt act to demonstrate that he wants to punish someone, that is retributive, punitive behavior. So, in this case, you cannot preach no blame culture. Because anyone who feel that he is always at fault, definitely the tendency is, the defense mechanism is, hold on, I'm not part of this. Somebody did a mistake. It is not my initiation. It is a failure of those people. It is the failure of this installer. It is the failure of that electrician. It is the failure of that carpenter. And we punish them. We terminated them. We canceled their contract. Right after the incident, I talked to the project manager. We canceled their contract because these people are the culprit. So in that case, we cannot look directly into the real cause of the incident, in the non-conformity, in the serious violation, because everybody is too defensive. Note that incident investigation or any non-conformity, we need to look deeper, beyond human, beyond possession, beyond anyone, the process. When the auditor, when the inspector, we look at the methodology, assuming lifting operation, and in that lifting operation, it looks like it is about to fail, and maybe you recognize that there is a serious dangerous occurrence. Sorry. If in that case, the auditor or the inspector will go into the process, let me see your process. The process here in the construction is what we call method statement, my friend, and your risk assessment. Once it is approved, that's the approved process. All right. This is not like during the time of BSO SAS 18001 that the organization has a mandatory. Your organization cannot be certified as compliant because there are, I think, 21 mandatory processes. So that is different. But in ISO 45001, those mandatory documents and internal processes, the organization may decide to keep them but non-auditable because it is nowhere in the clauses. It is not required in any of the clauses of the ISO 45001, the OHSMS, Occupational Health and Safety Management System. That is one of the difference. Now, when the auditor, when the inspector will check into the process, compare what is on site and what is in the approved process. If he go into the process, then that means that inspector is actually not punitive, nor he is retributive. That person is very straightforward. He is correctional. All right. The third thing, if you are consultant or an auditor or an inspector, maybe you will ask me of what would be your suggestion to avoid being punitive and being retributive, because this is wrong. This behavior is not acceptable. It has no place in an organization wherein you are going to promote good health and safety culture. So you will ask me now, like your trusted friend or an elder brother, what should I do to avoid being retributive and being punitive? My friend, I will tell you the secret. The secret is be correctional. What do you mean by correctional? All right. We take note, we discussed the punitive, we discussed the retributive. Now the third one, if you wanted to avoid blame culture, if you wanted to avoid being retributive, being punitive, adapt the number 3. The number 3, my friend, is correctional. How to correct unwanted event in the organization. How? Correctional. You have to be dependent into the approved processes. If you don't trust your process, if you think that your method statement, approved method statement, and risk assessment, then why you are there in the system? Because the system, look, the client is paying so much money for the knowledge, the talent, the competence of a technical person, a technical engineer in the project. He is the one drafting the method statement. He is the proponent if he is coming from the main contractor. Then that method statement will go to the consultant for review. And when the consultant finds something, he will return the document with comments. It will not reach to the client first. It will pass to the consultant. The consultant will review. When he finds something not in consonant with the best practice, with the local legislation, or with the guidelines set by the local authority, he will put his comments. Then the main contractor will rectify. These people are paid by their talent. And that approved process should be integrated into the minds of every technician, every team doing lifting operation, excavation, installation of any cladding material or waterproofing. This approved methodology is expected to penetrate into the minds of every individual so that they will be guided with the acceptable process. Sorry, my friend. I'm having cough because in the last few days, it is too cold outside. And I cannot prevent myself to go along with friends and visit Alvida. Alvida, we have a very good band in the night. And I do not know when that will close. And there are so many events in the last few days in Doha. So, I took advantage of that and joined with some friends. And I was exposed into cold, and that is why I have a little cough. It looks like I'm having common colds. Anyway, we will continue. Because no safety practitioner today that are happy to be to observe that in their organization there is a blame culture. Nobody likes. Nobody. These are impediments. These are the obstacles of developing an organization with a positive safety culture. Now, if you trust me, and if you are going to solicit my opinion of how to avoid being a lead man in the organization, and you would like to cut that culture of blame in an organization, friends, avoid being retributive, avoid being punitive. Rather, I will recommend you to go correctional. Correctional, which means you don't look at person. You don't look at individual. Especially if those individuals are trained, competent, with third-party certification to execute lifting operation, with third-party certification with a client approved, listed in the client, that such entity is capable and competent of conducting training for scaffolding, electrician, cost awareness, confined space, and etc. Then therefore, we have to trust on that. That when workers commit mistake, we can correct them rather than punish them. Alright? Because when you find yourself punishing people, it has domino effect. It will affect the focal person to be more protective of his interest, not to be terminated, not to be removed. He will not tell you the truth. He will only talk of something that he thinks it won't affect his service in the project. So, be correctional. Look at the methodology. Let the contractor and the consultant refine their processes. if there are things like, for example, PTW is not properly implemented, or maybe there is an implementation of permit to work, however, the issuer is not properly trained, require them, change the process, add these two requirements in the method statement. Then in doing so, the process is now refined. The only thing, it has to be communicated so that it will integrate into the actual working processes. So, my point tonight is to combat blame culture. To combat blame culture is for us safety practitioners to understand that retributive is real, punitive is real, and one way to avoid being retributive and punitive is to go correctional. Then we are objective in every inspection, in every audit, in every failure. We are objective. We check into the process. Show me what is this activity. Why this guy got electrocuted? What activity they are doing? Is there any PTW? Is this guy inducted? All right. It is covered by what method statement? Then the team will show you this method statement. All right. In this method statement, did it require them to touch the cable? And if they are going to touch the cable, what are the requirements? What are the required tools? Insulated or uninsulated cutter or pliers? Because if it is not mentioned, we need to correct this process. We have to be correctional. Not to correct human attitude directly by punishing them, but sending him for training, rectify the process, look into the approved methodology. If you don't like the approved methodology, tell them to revise. Then in that case, you start erasing, deleting the culture of blame. Because why should a focal person, why should the site engineer and the construction manager blame someone? Why? That anyway, the PMC, the inspector are not punitive. So, if you are one of the person who are correctional, then you can eradicate the culture of blame in the organization. Thank you and good evening.